I first saw this on Film 4. It was part of their 80s kind of revival of new films based on 80s kind of B-movies. Like you got Final Girls, I think there was Wolf Cop, and then Beyond the Gates, which I hadn't read anything about. But then I saw it was on Shudder, so we decided to watch it. So with Beyond the Gates, it's a bit of a poor man's Jumanji. It kind of came across like a student film at the start.
Yeah, the more I thought about it being a director's debut, I kind of gave it a bit more leeway, you know, kind of forgave a few things because I wasn't particularly taken with it. I was expecting something I could be invested in. I saw all the marketing and everything's like all neon purple. It's made to look to be super 80s.
I know, for us it kind of draws you in. It's like, oh, neon 80s. We love B-movies and stuff like that, but yeah, it's a bit of a love letter to one, isn't it? They clearly watched a lot of them. Kind of like a Rob Zombie thing where they really like film but not that great at making them.
There's a lot of inspiration, but for me it just came down to being a kind of standard horror film.
I didn't love the film. I thought it was a really slow burn. I did get that it had some interesting ideas.
I think it is probably the slowest 81-minute film I've ever seen.
Yeah, it felt like it went on forever. I really I don't know how it was 80 minutes. I thought it was just going to finish like sudden at one point. So the plot of Beyond the Gates follows these two brothers who are estranged. They've come back to their dad's old VHS shop because the dad's gone missing. He's kind of vanished into thin air. So they've come back and they're packing up all his stuff ready to sell in the shop. But then it turns into Jumanji, basically. They find a board game in the shop, which is an old VHS board game, which I don't think I've never heard of. I guess that was a thing back in the day.
You want to play the game. Now, who rolled the highest number? Answer me!
But the thing is, in the film, they explain it to you twice, which kind of annoyed me a bit. I was like, I got it the first time you explained it. This is where I feel like they waste time at the start. Even for an 80-minute film, they go over points that they don't need to. So they explain that at least twice. But I was like, I got the point when you first said it. It's a VHS Jumanji.
It's quite bizarre, really. They also exclaim that they need to keep playing the game. Like, I think we should keep playing the game. Or they say that we should stop playing the game. And they just go back and forth of saying, we need to finish this game. What do you think? I think we should play the game. Well, I'm really nervous. We should not play the game.
Play the game!
Time to play the game!
So just sit down and bloody play the game. Just finish it. Because there's no real reason why they need to finish it. Because neither of them really cared that much about their dad.
They don't know the ramifications.
They don't care about each other. Yeah, and there's nothing, like they get attacked by a random spirit at some point. But they said he came out the gate. The gate is just in that house. Just leaves the house.
Yeah, they seemed pretty calm when they went down to the basement and found a pair of gates in the basement.
It's not like Insidious where they move house and the thing follows them, which they purposely do in that to show you that it's attached to the kid, not the house.
It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
Whereas in this, it's kind of just, it's in the house. Just the board game literally looks like the house. Just leave the board game there. It's not like Jumanji, you know, when you hear the sound and you're like, oh, better go play Jumanji.
Oh my God!
The thing is as well, like, the beginning, they didn't set it up well enough. The writing wasn't good enough at the start for you to feel the payoff at the end with the characters.
Yeah.
Because some of those characters we meet, like, once, but I guess, like, they're just trying to shoehorn them into the film to have them reappear later. But say with the brother, John's his friend who's a bit of an arsehole. Like, how did they know each other? We have no backstory.
I don't know.
For them.
That was pretty weird.
They
it was
just kind of know each other, and then he turns up again at the end. There's things like that I don't get.
Well, they call him by a drifter, so he's friends with a drifter, but then he just kind of rocks up with a drifter of all people and introduces him to his brother, who then insults his brother's partner.
Yeah.
And then they never have an interaction ever again.
No.
It's just super bizarre. It's like, you know, convenience, like characters crop up because it's a really small, intimate cast, so...
But this is the thing, if it was in a better film, they would have shown the brother maybe hanging out with this drifter in in some random place, like maybe like he's into drugs or something, and they show him in a house together, just to give some kind of background in how they actually know each other. They just turn up at a bar together and you're meant to just understand the dynamic there. And the police, the cop as well, like they have one interaction with him at the start to clearly show they knew each other years ago maybe, but that's the only bit of background you have to him. So when he shows up again, you're just like, all right, that's just that one guy I met earlier.
I feel like this film could have been completed by just like a group of friends.
Yeah.
Like a group of friends with the house that one of them lived in, where they spend most of the time on the set in the basement, and then they've got the local bar that they've been to, they've got a couple of shops that they could maybe change the front to, and those are pretty much the only locations that we really visit.
Yeah, I think technically the film's pretty good. Like, it looks nice. They clearly know what they're doing behind the camera in terms of visually. The lighting's great all the way through, I think, which is a big thing for these type of low budget films.
I really like the lighting as well.
Yeah, it was nice. There was some nice night shots, which was surprising. And then the audio was really good as well. So he clearly knows what he's doing behind the camera. It's just, I feel like the writing kind of let it down.
If I was going to watch another full-length feature from this director, I'd be expecting a lot more.
Hopefully with a bigger budget, though, because I could have seen this working with a big budget. I don't know if this film would have worked nicer as like a cartoon, because there's a bit where they kind of travel into the afterworld. I can't remember what they call it. It's like the beyond, I guess. They travel there, and it would have been cool if it had been cartoon, like a proper 80s action cartoon, like really gory and violent.
Like Heavy Metal.
Yeah, something like that. I feel like that would have complemented what they were doing with it a little bit more.
That would have been pretty cool. I guess with their resources, it's a big ask to just say,
yeah,
can you change that film into a cartoon? I
guess it's
because that would be better.
But the premise was a great premise to start. It's just if you haven't got the kind of budget, it's you're not going to be able to do everything you want to do to really flesh that out. Like I said with Jumanji, like Jumanji's amazing. You have all these animals, all these characters, and these amazing places. Whereas this, they couldn't really do that, so they had to just have it in a house, and then they're going on an adventure to find keys, but all the keys are just in places they know around the place.
Yeah, so the concept for me, I thought was pretty good. I think to come off of your own back and try and throw that into a short film, I thought it was quite interesting. You could do some things there. I thought the practical special effects were brilliant, which is always a big draw for me for 80s films. Like if you're seeing super uber violence, which actually was like a stark contrast to most of the film, where they spend most of the time being in small intimate situations and chatting, and then the next scene somebody's head explodes.
I know, I feel like I would have enjoyed the film more if more of that had been earlier on in the film. I feel like it was too much of a slow burn, which I don't mind in films. Like, I'll watch slow burn films, but I felt with this one they didn't pack in the start with enough interesting things for me to care about them later. They should have just gone straight in with it if they were going to do it. Yeah,
if the payoff was going to be something a bit more grand, then I would be willing to accept the slow build-up. Yeah,
that's the problem. Half of the film is them having people tell them to play the game, but they don't play the game.
They never play the game.
So just sit down and play the game.
There's one moment where he's like, I don't want to play the game anymore, and then the TV says, you have to play the game. They go like, right, we'll play the game, and then it cuts to them and they're asleep in bed.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, I guess
I'll leave it for another night. I'll leave it.
I'll put this down now and I'll come back.
I'll pick that up tomorrow. It'll be all right.
Oh my god, yeah. It's not like Jumanji where they're actively trying to play the game the whole time, but they're getting stuck into, like, you know, like with crocodiles and things, they're physically being stopped from playing the game. They're just going for a nightcap for some reason.
I wasn't really sure how the rules of the game went. I mean, like, it would be good if I got a good look at that rule book in the games manual.
Another thing. If you're going to make a film about a board game, at least tell us the rules. In a lot of these horrors, with this one especially, you don't know what the rules are, so anything could happen. Literally anything.
And nobody threw a dice or anything. I thought I was going to get some real good, like, Dungeons and Dragons, like, you know, 10-sided die throws or anything like that, but there was nothing of that. And then nobody even touched the counters to move it across. It just moved on its own. So, like, they could be, like, come in through the front door, walk through to the bathroom, through the living room, and just be like, oh, is it my turn? Oh, I've already been. Oh, well.
Yeah, who was keeping track?
Who was keeping track? If you move my cursor, it just moved on its own. Oh, we'll just carry on.
The game is largely pushed forward by the woman in the TV, played by Barbara Crampton. You can tell she took this just because she wouldn't actually have to be on set. What is she? She's kind of like the Crypt Keeper. She's kind of like the...
Yeah, she's a bit like a Crypt Keeper.
Kind of controlling the film in a way because she's the one point that keeps coming back to, and she pushes the game along. She does a good job. I think she's relatively creepy, but I don't know anything about her. She's just kind of a, you know...
I think she's just meant to be the spiritual entity that, like, kind of controls the board game.
Yeah, there's a really small cast of characters in this. There's kind of the obvious ones.
Can we talk about the creepy, like, the oddest character in the whole film, the guy who runs the shop?
Good morning.
He runs like a curiosity shop, which he originally sold the board game, which made no sense either.
But he doesn't even explain, like, what happens. He just says, like, the dad went missing and then the board game ended up back in their possession. He says, does anyone ever return the game? And he's like, oh no, the game returns itself in his creepy kind of Vincent Price-esque way.
He's kind of channeling Vincent Price and Mark Gatiss a little bit.
He's such an odd presence in the film. Like, even as, like, a line of comic relief where he distracts him by pointing at something. He's like, oh, it's my pet on the wall, and just throw it in there. Ooh.
He was really giving 110%, wasn't he? I gotta admit, out of all of the actors, he was trying.
We think our father bought this from your store a few years ago.
Robert Hardesty, 1991. Well, I'm afraid it's a little late to make a return.
It's been following these brothers, and it hasn't explicitly told us about the relationship between them and the father, about how he was. He was obviously a bit drunk, and they'd lost their mum in a car crash, which they explained through a bit of an exposition dump at most, because they haven't shown any of these actions happen. And the final showdown between their father, who is now a demon of some sort, and their so-called friends, who were only in minor scenes beforehand anyway, who are now also demons, end up having a fist fight in the other world, in the basement of the house that they've been in. What? And it comes to, the dad comes up, the older brother with the glasses, who must have had a strained relationship with the father, like gets ready to stab him, but then he backs down because, oh, I can't face my feelings with my father even though he's a demon. But then he finally fights back and stabs his dad, and his dad's like, oh, thank you, God, you sent me to the afterlife. Well, they just like kind of threw in like kind of cheeseball ending.
It wanted to be emotional, but it didn't build the emotion at all for me to feel it was emotional.
I know. And then when they leave the board game, they find out that the dad was dead all along. He's dead. Even one of the brothers says, I thought we were going to save him, but then the TV says, no, his soul's been freed, but unfortunately his physical form could never return. I want my receipts for that board game, because I'm not being funny. If I spent that long trying to get my dad back and he's dead.
I'm afraid it's a little late to make a return.
Would you recommend Beyond the Gates?
I'd recommend it to a friend who knew what they were watching. Like, if they could understand that, you know, that shot's really cool, and fair play to them for trying that shot here and there, because it's a first-time film. Like, I really enjoyed this, like, the close-up special effects.
I could see that. For, like, new filmmakers, I could definitely see that. Because technically, I think it's really well made.
But if a friend came to me and said, would you recommend me a horror to watch? I'm bored, I've got a Saturday night free, and I'm on my own. I don't think I'd slide Beyond the Gates in front of them.
You see, I'd recommend From Beyond or something like that. Just because that's... At least you have the humour and the over-the-top B-movie type thing for that. It's more enjoyable to watch. Whereas this one, it's so slow burn and nothing much happens. You get a couple of glimpses of great, you know, gore and effects and that, but other than that, there's not much to it. I'll give it 6 ghost dads out of 10. Only because I think everything else around the film is really good, like the premise and the way it's made. It's just I feel like the writing really let it down.
I think I'm going to go with 3 talking tellies out of 10. I tried.
Answer me!